Okay, so we're actually ahead of schedule, which I don't think has ever happened to me before in anything I've moderated. So this is very good. The bad part, of course, is that it means I might talk more. But these guys have got lots of experience and lots of great stories, so I'm actually going to let them do most of the talking. But I do want to talk a little bit about an event that I was at yesterday. And there was, it was for a documentary that was shown at the Lightbox, the Toronto Festival Lightbox, and it was called Day Job, and it was all about the trials and tribulations of some entrepreneurs that had gone through an accelerator, much like what some of the people in this room, I'm sure, have been through before. And one of them was a 22-year-old, and he had started an app that was all about healthy eating. And unfortunately, the business failed, but he ended up getting a job almost immediately afterward. And I thought, like, here's a 22-year-old who's already, like, built and launched and been through the process of trying to start a business, and then went out and got a job, and all by the age of 22. So who knows what this guy's going to be capable of down the road. Just like an amazing story about, you know, kind of the new Canada, and a lot about, I think, what we'll be talking about this morning with the people on the panel. So what I want to do first is actually just get each of them to describe a little bit about who they are and their business backgrounds. So Charles, why don't we start with you, and we'll work our way down the line.
Thanks. So I just really enjoyed the presentations this morning. It's a little almost scared straight type situation, because I mean guilty in terms of no, well, I won't say no financial literacy, but I've got a long way to go. I think that the way I came into running my own business, though, did help in a sense, and I think that this is maybe common to a lot of younger people, and what Jeff was mentioning at the beginning of his presentation, which was that before I ever even remotely thought of myself as an entrepreneur, I was an independent contractor working for myself for a giant company. I'd previously been an employee, and it was sort of like a slow transition to, they were changing things around, and then I became an independent contractor to who used to be my employer. And that was, you know, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur, but really that is, you're out there on your own. And then that was sort of my first taste of financial literacy. I didn't realize when you're a salaried employee, you know, everything's taken care of. Your HR, your taxes come out. It's just all you need to do is not spend more than you take in, and you're good to go, basically. So that, but then by being, I think that what's common among millennials is by being an independent contractor, you're free to sort of pursue ideas you have. It's not, you're not moonlighting from your employer. So that was when I started working with just other distilleries, and then just saw how much fun they were having, and then CYBF was the key point, because I kind of spent a lot of time with the stories. I kind of learned the business, and the suppliers, was able to write up a business plan, but without CYBF, it would have never been gotten off the ground, because there's just no financing available except for them. If you're so extremely appreciative to them, and we were able to make it and make a go of it, and started a distillery in Toronto, incorporated last summer, and it's been wonderful. LCBO completely bought out months of our production, and so hopefully be on the shelves next month. So encourage y'all to check it out. Thank you.
My name's Marnie Stretch, and I'm from St. Albert, which is just outside of Edmonton. And I'm not a millennial. I guess I'm a Gen Xer. I definitely have some millennial tendencies. I like not to work 9 to 5. I like to work from wherever I happen to be. And it's really exciting to be here to see sort of, the profiles were awesome, and everybody's business ideas, and just kind of what the millennials are coming up with. I have my own business. I'm a certified ProAdvisor. I work with desktop and online versions. I have been for over 20 years. I lived in the States for a very long time, where QuickBooks definitely has the market share and is the best product. I'm absolutely passionate about it, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of this program, and again, just excited to see what's kind of coming up for the millennials.
Hello, I'm Geneviève Shaw. I'm from Gatineau, and my business is a theater cafe, so it's a dinner and a show type of thing. I studied theater in the University of Ottawa, and we were told that to make it in theater, to work and be able to live off theater, you have to create your own jobs, which is very true. So I was also at the time working in a cafe that I really enjoyed. I really liked the ambiance and the atmosphere of a cafe, so we decided to mix both the cafe and the theater part. So we have a very big cafe and small theater at the same time, so it's very intimate and very chaleureux. And it was the idea was to be able to do what we wanted, to work, to enjoy our job, because my philosophy of life was I'm going to be working most of my life, so I might as well enjoy my job and feel free to do it. So that's what happened. It's been a year now, so yay.
My name is Michael Mallow. I'm certified ProAdvisor. I live in the nice region of Lanaudière in Quebec. And I enjoy working with a lot of entrepreneurs of all ages, but I'm specialized in trying to help them become financial literate. It's a bit of my mission. I've been working with QuickBooks now since I think the very first US version, and I've worked with all the versions since then, both in English and in French, but I specialize mostly in French. I've written a few books on QuickBooks and Succès PME Pro and Premier, and now the new QuickBooks Online version. And I'm really a fanatic about QuickBooks, so I try to help the people I work with, the entrepreneurs, to have a better understanding of their finances. And this has been my goal for years now, so I'm very happy to be here and see that Intuit and CYBF has this goal of helping millennials to succeed in their businesses, because that's what I believe in. Since day one that I started doing training with entrepreneurs, that's what I was telling them. You need to know what's going on in your business and where your business is going, and it's very important to have somebody beside you to help you to know where you're going, and somebody that also knows a financial product like QuickBooks to help them set it up so that they know where their business is going. And that's been my aim. So I'm very happy to be part of this project.
Okay, great. So we've got millennial entrepreneurs on the panel here, and I think 2 Gen Xers who are representing the accounting side. So let's try to combine the two a little bit. Hopefully you know a little bit about each other's generations, but one of the things I want to know is how you guys think it's different to be a millennial entrepreneur, someone who's starting a business now versus what it might have been like to start a business, say, 20 years ago. So why don't we start with Michael, and then we'll work our way back to me.
Well, I think what makes this different now is probably the technology, where there is so much possibility now with technology. I think young entrepreneurs now, they want to be able to work from their iPhone, from their tablet. They want to have, access to their data anywhere they are, and I think that's a very good thing, because then they have more control on their financials.
Geneviève?
I don't really know what it was like 20 years ago.
That's why I said it was a bit of a trick question in
Yeah.
some cases. Take a wild guess.
From what I remember from when I was a kid, and that was not 20 years ago either, but thinking of the business side of life, what business was, it was very aggressive and sharp. You have to be a shark. You have to go. It was all about the money. It was all about. I remember thinking that, and oh my gosh, I don't want to be like that. And I mean, I went into the arts, so you can tell that finances for me were like nothing. But today, well, I think they encourage more the young entrepreneurs to go into business, and the other aspect of, yes, the financial is very important, but you also get to do what you want. So the financial aspect gives you the liberty to do what you want. So I think that's what we're learning more now. That's where we're going, I think.
Okay, thanks, Marnie.
I guess I would mirror what Michael said about technology. The best way is to sort of is to sort of paint a picture. So when I started out with QuickBooks, sure, there was internet. I wasn't really using it very much. So if questions came up in a client's file, we had technical support, or we would work on it ourselves, right? We would work the puzzle until we sort of figured out the best way to do something. And now, with all the LinkedIn groups and all the online blogs, etc., really, if you have a question, you just go online, you can Google it, you can ask a lot of people. So the world has shrunk in that regard. So you have a lot of data at your fingertips. So that's my experience. I can't really speak to the millennial experience, but I'm thinking they have a lot of sort of instant access to resources, information, which I think is definitely a change. So.
Yeah, to back up exactly what everyone's been saying, and specifically for our own case, there's internet forums now for every imaginable business, and so for the small scale distilling, even though it's this goes back thousands of years, it's at least it's one of the oldest industries around, but they're just, I would say it began around 2007, 2008. There's sort of an online archive developed via like this one internet forum site where every specific distilling type situation that hit us, there was a thread on it, and it was out there publicly available. We just read it, benefited from all of their experience. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing. Oh, and here's a list of suppliers that know exactly how to fix this, and it was wonderful. So, and I can if we didn't have that, I don't know what we would have done. I guess I spent a lot of money on consultants. Library. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. Like list of suppliers. This is how much they charge. Like, to be honest, I mean, this is insider information that was not opaque, but now it is public information. So, thank God for the internet and technology, and especially if you're young and if you're millennial, you don't have the benefit of of maybe the same amount of funds to hire consultants or hire people who know how to do things. And so it's great that it's just out there.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely the case. And I think, between the four of you, we really got a good sense, actually, despite the fact that you aren't necessarily from the same generation, obviously. But I think support, obviously, is a big deal as well. It's a big part of it. Entrepreneurship is hotter in Canada now than it probably ever has been. And there are so many more organizations out there that are dedicated toward helping entrepreneurs that I think that's a big part of it as well. I remember when my own father, and I was thinking that maybe you guys might have some background just from your own parents if they were entrepreneurs, but you can maybe talk about that a little later. But he worked for a couple of really big companies, and one day he just came home and said, F it, I'm done with this, like literally. And he's an accountant, and he just started his own business almost literally the next day. So it was that frustration with working at a big corporation and not being able to do what he wanted to do that drove him. And I think that's probably still the case today. That's probably one of the commonalities, I think. So let's talk a little bit about the generalizations about millennials, that they're lazy and entitled. I'm from Generation X as well, and we were known as the slacker generation. So I don't really know what's changed. Maybe we weren't labeled impatient, because I suppose if you're a slacker, it's kind of hard to be impatient. You're extremely patient, actually. But anyways, so let's focus on the lazy and entitled part, which seem to be the two things that sort of have glommed on to the generation. And of course, generalizations are always fraught with all sorts of problems, because of course not everybody is the same, and painting them all with one brush is not really the right way to go. But still, it seems to be that in stories that people tell and in stories that you read, not of course in the Globe and Mail, well maybe in the Globe and Mail, but have basically sort of created this scenario. And so let's talk a little bit about sort of myth versus reality, and whether you guys sort of agree that this generalization is somewhat accurate, or whether you totally disagree, or whether the answer is maybe somewhere in between. And I don't know, Marnie, why don't we start with you on that one?
Sure, because I have an 18-year-old at home. And there's a joke about Generation Y, which is also a name for the millennials. Like, why do I have to take out the trash? Why do I have to drive my car when I could drive yours? So a lot of those things are certainly applicable to my 18-year-old. I hate to say it. But a good quote came from a friend ProAdvisor, who shall remain nameless, that said, "It's so nice working with these young entrepreneurs, because when you have thankless kids at home, it's so nice, right?" Not that I have a thankless kid at home, but I honestly don't have an answer, because I see him And I think the relationship there, I think it's different when it's a parent-child. And I actually asked him yesterday, I said, you know, he just got out of high school, so he's not starting his own business. However, I said to him, what do you think some of the biggest challenges are coming out of school in terms of, how did I phrase it? Anyway, his answer was, he doesn't know enough about money. He says they don't teach blank in school about it. And that's so true. Like, they take, I think, career and life management, a comm class, which is sort of how to play with others. But there's nobody teaching how, yeah, it's true, 10th grade. But nobody teaching how to complete a 1040 easy or whatever it is, right? Nobody teaching how to look at taxes or any of that. So I think that's missing, but I'm totally getting off the point. I don't know what's in store for this generation. I think there's a lot of excitement about what they're capable of. It certainly is different from the way that we were brought up. And yeah, I don't have a definitive answer, so that's it.
No, but I think that's a good point. I do think they've stripped a lot of the basic life skills training out of high schools. So I think that's actually a really big issue, and it's why some of these support networks have to come in and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, it would be so great just to go around to the high schools and have a 2-hour class on this is how to complete your tax return. They all need that information. Why are they not getting that? It's missing for sure. So.
Okay, Geneviève, what do you think?
I think the generalization is, I don't think it's true at all. I don't think that we don't want to work 9 to 5. I don't want to work 9 to 5, that's for sure. But I don't think that makes me lazy. I work 9 to 9. So if wanting to do what you love is lazy, I don't think that's lazy either. I think that's just, I don't think it's wrong at all. I think it's a good thing, and I think you're going to be even more successful doing what you love than something you hate 9 to 5. So from my experience, from people around me, people my age, I don't see anybody lazy around at all. So for that, I don't think it's true at all. But it is true that we do need to learn more of that in high school. I didn't learn anything in high school about real life.
Okay, Michael.
I also don't like those generalization where you paint all this generation with one same paintbrush. I think in every generation there are leaders, there are people that will have ideas that will go forward, and others that will just follow. So I think entrepreneurs have always been there, I think it's a fact, but today they are facing a different challenge than they were before, and I also do think that they have different tools than the other entrepreneurs had in the past, and I think they're using these tools. Some of them are using these tools to develop their own work, their own business, and I think that's very good. So and I agree that school has not been given people the tools that they need to get out there and make a business, or even have their own have a control on their own finances and so on. Another point I want to make also is well, I just forgot it. So I'll leave it at that.
The millennials would not have forgotten. No. Okay. That was a dig at myself as well, so I can do that. Charles, do you work 9 to 9 as well, or what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just if we're rejecting generalizations here, just I'd love to throw them back at. We can talk boomer generalizations, and
I would love to do that. Yeah, let's go for it.
I mean, no, I'm having fun, but. Yeah, I started working at a major blue chip company right out of school. Started in August 2010. In January 2010, they stopped offering pensions, defined benefit pensions, for the first time, since they started, 60 years ago. And I mean, that's just a reality. Unless you work for the government, forget about actually being able to draw a salary or any kind of income after you retire. It's just all just pitch your money into the stock market and fingers crossed. So I definitely think that I mean, it's sour grapes for previous generations, sure. I mean, that's why not? Or for the and subsequent generations. So yeah, I do agree with what everyone said, that generations aren't helpful. But yeah, I feel before throwing stones, we should all look at our own generation.
Okay, but you didn't take your dig at the boomers.
Yeah, exactly.
I think on your 9 to 9 point, though, Geneviève, I've talked to a lot of business owners who employ millennials, and they said one of the big differences, and maybe you and Charles could talk a little bit about this, is that people like to extend the workday out, not necessarily just because they're working the entire time, but because technology enables you to be so connected to people that you may want to, get involved in social media and be on Facebook and Twitter and do other things through the day aside from just working all the time. And I think that it's something that some other generations grapple with because they're used to going into work, doing their work, and then going home. Whereas, now it's more like work is part of a lifestyle almost in a way because there are so many different ways to remain sort of socially connected. So do you guys agree with that? Like, do you find that you're kind of combining work and life together and that's the new work-life balance? And I don't know, Geneviève, let's start with you. And Michael and Martin, if you want to weigh in on that, that's fine too. Go ahead.
Absolutely, yes. What I thought about after in my head when I was listening to everybody else, I work 9 to 5. I do what I love 9 to 5. Well, not always love what I do, but there's the hard part and the good part, and it's all about running the business. I'd say 9 to 9, I'd say 24/7. I'm always thinking about my work because I love it, because it's part of my life. It's really, like you said, my lifestyle. And that was pretty much what I wanted since high school, to just always be in what I love and do it. It's, for sure, sometimes it's nice to think about something else and do something else. But in my day-to-day life, it's certainly part of my lifestyle, my work.
Charles, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, given the options, the thing I love about being an entrepreneur is or running your own business is that it's like you enjoy thinking about it. It's not. I do think about where it's going, what I can do nonstop, to the point where it's actually I find it's important to make sure that you do make time to do the things that don't involve your business. Like that's actually a tip I would get to anyone who's starting their own business or following a passion of theirs, is make sure that you do find time to, and don't always talk about what you're doing to everybody you meet because they're going to get tired of it. So yeah, there's some things to be careful of if you go down that road. But don't get me wrong, it's wonderful otherwise.
Okay, Marnie or Michael, did you want to speak on that? Okay, Michael.
Yes, well, I agree that the work week now is a lot different than it used to be. Because of all the technology, where I know even for myself, being in my own business, some days I won't be doing my work. I'll be doing something else that I've chosen to do. And that's important for me. And that's the great flexibility that I like to be an entrepreneur. And I think young entrepreneurs now are taking more advantage of that possibility maybe than there were in the past.
Marnie.
Yeah, I'm just going to read a quote actually from the Intuit 2020 report that was put out a couple years ago. What they say is, over the next decade, Gen Y will graduate college and build careers with a continued commitment to work-life balance. So reflecting on what you said, Gen Y will continue focusing less on physically spending time at a job site and more on getting the job done. Connecting through the cloud will allow Gen Y to succeed on the move and approach the work-life balance they desire. And I guess I'd just say that's probably one of the challenges facing millennials, is that it doesn't consume you 24/7, because it certainly can, right? It's not like going to 9 to 5 job, leaving it there, coming home, and now you're doing your family life, right? It's 24/7, so it can be a little hard to unplug sometimes.
Well, and I think that's the big challenge for a lot of companies that want to compress the workday because they're used to doing that. But you have people working with you that don't necessarily want to do that, and it's kind of hard to manage a group of people that you've never managed in that way before. So we've talked a little bit about financial literacy, obviously, before the panel even started, but also we've sort of referenced those basic skills in high school. So let's talk about financial literacy and the challenge that presents for entrepreneurs. So Maybe for the pro-advisors, what are some of the challenges, the financial literacy challenges specifically that you see in the entrepreneurs that you're working with? And for the entrepreneurs, why don't you guys talk about some of the financial literacy challenges that you've faced as business owners and how you managed to overcome those? So, I don't know, Michael, why don't we start with you and work our way back down?
Well, I think a lot of young entrepreneurs don't have the basic of bookkeeping and of accounting and how to read financial statements. And I see that all the time when businesses, young entrepreneurs want to start up their business, and then they know they have to do their books, but they don't know where to start. And they have no idea what a chart of account is, and they have no idea how to read financial statements. And it is the basis, I think, for them to be able to understand those things, those concepts, because they will be very important when they're in front of the bank and when they're in front of their accountant and when they're in front of the tax guy, and because they'll need to have that information. And as we saw today in the different presentation, it will also represent the success of their business. So I think that's a very important aspect.
So just before we move on, how do you deal with that? Like, what would be your suggestion to an entrepreneur that doesn't have financial literacy? What do you think that they should do? Because presumably they should get those skills before they start a business ideally, but obviously as early in the process as possible. So what advice could you give to them?
Well, I think maybe a small course on how to, what is bookkeeping, just the basis of the bookkeeping, even if they don't know all the intricacies of accounting, but at least to know the basis. I know in my teaching, in the way that I teach, because I teach QuickBooks mostly, but one of the main aspects that I do is try to help them understand how financial statement works and where these amounts pop up from. These amounts come from here and these amount comes from here, so that when they look at a financial statement, they know what's behind those numbers. And I find that's one great thing about QuickBooks, is that it's very easy to see what's behind those numbers with the financial application. So that's when I try to teach, and I also teach the way to look at financial statements, and so I think maybe a basic course on that for entrepreneurs would be important, and it doesn't have to be very long. I mean, when I teach, probably just taking half an hour, and an hour you can pretty much cover what is a financial statement and how to read it, even if you go on just the general ideas.
Okay, Marnie, you were looking at me, so I think you were on a way. No, go for it.
No, I really don't have a whole lot to add to that, because that was pretty comprehensive. Although I'd say they probably face a bit of a double whammy, because not only are they needing to learn about financial statements, etc., but they're having to learn a software as well. So they're kind of faced with two challenges. Fortunately, QuickBooks is the best software and easy to learn, so that sort of lessens how much time they need to put there. And a course is a great idea. In my intro to financial accounting class, there were not only accountants, bookkeepers there, but there was a lot of small business owners that just wanted to come to learn about it. And I think it should be mandatory. It was a really great class, and yeah, every business owner should have that knowledge. So, yeah. Well,
we had talked about the libraries earlier, and we kind of laughed about it. But do libraries offer that kind of thing? Like, where would you go to get sort of like a free course or a very reasonably priced one?
Right, that's a good question, and maybe a good startup for somebody. Because honestly, I went to a college, right, to take those classes. So, of course, through QuickBooks, there's training. There's training through Accounting Cycle QuickBooks, training partners. So there's that kind of training. But yeah, like a 2-hour, intro to financial statements class would be fantastic. So that's, making the wheels spin. So yeah.
Okay, Geneviève, let's hear about your experiences on this.
Well, when I started, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, financially speaking. I hired an accountant to help me out, and he was speaking Chinese to me very, very fast. And slow down, what does that mean? So he helped me a lot to understand some things, but I'm here today because I I have trouble with that. That's one of my weakest points in my business management. I don't understand everything, and I want to, because I have to know what's going on behind my business and everything to make it work. So actually a class would be great way before we start. I remember taking a class on how to launch my business. I took a class on sales, and if they had a class about financial literacy, I would have definitely taken it before I even started my business.
So you mentioned that you had hired an accountant,
Yes.
so that was kind of your way of getting around this. So
Yeah.
who does your financials now? Do you do them yourself? Do you use an online program? Do you have someone that you work
Well,
with
we
within the
recently
business?
just started working with QuickBooks. I'm trying to learn how to use that. My accountant uses QuickBooks too, so it's going to be an easy transfer. But I'd like to do it myself eventually. But right now he does it.
And are you still employing that accountant, or do you have somebody else now?
For another month, maybe.
Uh-huh. Wherever he may be, or she. Charles, how about you?
Yeah, I think one thing I would definitely say to anyone who hasn't fully gotten the importance of financial literacy is you can't just do the same pitch you would do to your customer or do your elevator pitch to the myriad of well, not just to the tax office, but also to the myriad of, there's actually a lot of support systems out there for a small business, like a lot, but they're never straightforward. It's never just come in, pitch your idea, and here we'll help you out. It's here, okay, they've got these tax credits, but it's a complicated process. And if you don't have organized financial statements, it doesn't matter how much excitement you've got around or how great your prospects are. If you can't, fill in the blanks on these forms, then you're just not going to you're going to miss out on a wealth of support that is out there. It's not easy to get access to if you're not doing this properly. So that would be just another angle in terms of why you have to do this properly. Now, that being said, I'm still learning this myself. So we started out. I mean, we were just using Excel. We knew that it was a capital intensive business. We knew that that there was things like depreciation and amortization, and that we should definitely kind of segregate spending on equipment versus inventory. But it was just sort of like all going into we knew enough that we had to track the data. We didn't know enough that we how to make a organized financial statement out of it. So it's I'm really excited about finally getting on board with QuickBooks. I probably should have done it from day one, but better late than never, and hopefully it's not too late. So.
Well, it's not too late if you're still in business, so this is good. I remember when I was in business school in university, and we had to do a profit and loss statement for a case study that we were doing. We had to sort of make up a business and do all the financials around it. And I mixed up the profit and loss, and I looked at it and went, wow, this business could do really well. Until the professor looked at it and said, you're out of business. So anyway, that's why I'm a journalist. Sure, go ahead.
I'm just curious to all the entrepreneurs here. When you're starting out, your business is so exciting, and getting loans and getting the equipment and maybe renting a space, etc. How exciting is it to learn about finances? I'm being serious. I'm curious because I would think that it kind of falls down the list of exciting things to do. So I would just throw this out there. I wonder how we can make it more exciting or more compelling, or find ways to connect with these small businesses. So I'm just kind of
Sure,
thinking
Charles,
out
why
loud.
don't we go back to you on that, and then
Yeah,
Jean-Pierre.
as you were talking, it occurred to me that especially perhaps for millennial entrepreneurs, they didn't make the choice because it was a rational business decision. This will be much better than a salaried income. No, they chose it because they were really passionate and excited about jumping into this thing. And so you are dealing with somebody that's motivated entirely by just excitement, enthusiasm, passion. And so that's whereas if you're just if you were starting a business as a cold calculated business decision, then this is going to come. You don't have to. This is going to be the first thing they do. But that's, overwhelmingly, I imagine, not what you're dealing with when millennial entrepreneurs. So that's actually, and the more I think about it, that's it's an important thing. And how do you convey the importance? I don't know. Maybe even it should. I don't know. It's actually a big challenge that maybe the lenders, CYBF, can help promote as well, because I definitely think that you can guarantee that we'll underestimate the importance of, or not take it as seriously as other things that we should be doing.
But do you think that accounting could be fun?
Well, you know, yeah, I think, I mean, there's other... Okay,
I think we have the answer.
Yeah. No, it can be. I think that it's exciting when you know, I mean, I love with QuickBook Office. It's nice, thank God for technology, that instead of like manually typing in transactions, it just pulled everything from the bank account. And so, and if you can do things automatically with data that I didn't have to automatically put in, and then I'm kind of like, oh, that's neat. So yeah, then it can be, you know, yeah,
Somewhat
exactly.
exciting.
Mildly
Yeah.
fun. Jean-Pierre, what do you think?
I think, well,
Do we have your answer as well? Just pull the mic a little closer.
it wasn't very exciting. It's not, but I think it can be. I think it can be. I think it clarifies things. So it gets a little more concrete. Like what you see that's what it is. So I think it can be fun, but I'm not super excited about it.
So let's put the accountants on the spot then. Did you get into accounting because you thought it was fun? Or did you get into it because you thought you could make money?
I don't think any of those reasons. I think I went into accounting because I like numbers and I like things that are orderly. So bookkeeping, you kind of put order in those numbers. And I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of entrepreneurs is that it's the old shoebox where they put all their receipts in this shoebox and then they give it to their accountant, and they only know like 3 months after the year end, oh, how have I done? And that it's horrible for a business because you don't know where you're going. And I think we can make accounting more exciting if we show the results, and how by just having reporting on sales, on how their expenses are going, how they can give more control on their business. And what I really like about QuickBooks Online is the company snapshot, which is like a page where you have all these nice colored graphics. So if you're not a numbers person and you find these numbers boring, just having those graphs is probably easier. So it gives you the importance of inputting those numbers, inputting those, boring expenses and so on, because when you look at those graphs, then you have all kinds of numbers or all kinds of visual information on how your business is doing. Am I spending too much money on this, or how are sales on this product going versus this product, and so on. And I think those are important information that will get the entrepreneur excited about accounting when they see the result.
That's a very good point. And I think in an age of analytics where people are always looking at numbers and always interested in numbers and literally watching them in real time, that's actually very true. And I think if you can kind of translate over onto the accounting side, you might actually be able to make it fun. And what do you think, Marnie? You asked the question originally. So.
Right. I can see where it wouldn't be all that exciting to other people, but for me it totally is. It's a passion. I loved QuickBooks from the minute I started using it. I have an odd situation. I also work in media, so I kind of am a little in the right brain world and a little in the left brain world. So I kind of see both components, and I definitely like the precision of it. But as you say, QBO is presenting it, QuickBooks Online is presenting it in such a way that people that are right brain can kind of take in that information as well. So yeah, I'm totally excited about it. I'm totally passionate about it, but I can see how it might sort of not be that exciting for people. But you're right. I think if you can sort of, in my head I'm seeing a picture, right? So you've got the shoebox from this to this, and it's like this lovely set of financials that you can take to a lender or a bank or whatever the case may be. Then maybe that's a better sell than you got to get your accounting done. So looking at the result might be a good strategy.
Yeah, I love the shoebox thing because I imagine every accountant, when they see the business owner walking in with the shoebox, says, "Oh boy, here we go." Okay, so let's extend the educational discussion out to post-secondary, because there are quite a few schools now across Canada that are offering more entrepreneur programs, and they're trying to tailor their schools to be almost a little bit more like accelerators or incubators, where they might pair people up who want to start businesses with mentors, and they might even try to bring in some venture capitalists or angel investors to try to help out on the funding side, so that when people leave school, they've actually not only got a business idea, but they might have actually had the opportunity to get it started. Do you think that's sort of one piece of the answer to trying to get more people to start businesses, or to help people start more businesses? Or do you think school should be a little bit more scholastic and less hands-on in nature? So just sort of broadly speaking, what do you think about the efforts that schools are making, and what else do you think schools might be able to do to actually help encourage entrepreneurship across Canada? And Charles, why don't we start with you?
Well, I haven't actually, I never studied business, so I can't speak to how that may or may not help. For me, I went to law school. I'm a lawyer, and I did study corporations, securities regulation, and this was actually extremely useful. And just demystifying everything. So it's not like doing a public offering now isn't like some pie in the sky dream, or like how do you get there? It's sort of like, no, I understand exactly how like that can happen and what you have to do to make that happen. Studying business organizations, the difference between partnership in a company and what that means is these things, like just demystifying all of this. So and actually find that even when I talk to people that are have run businesses, they're still sort of like, okay, it's a corporation. Like there's still like, if you can be in business and still there's like mystery around that. But understanding, no, this is exactly what this vehicle is, and you've got just understanding what it can be used for and what its purposes are, and was extremely helpful, and just a bedrock of confidence for me to go out there on my own to do this, that I understand what these things meant, really.
Do you think, though, that you would have benefited from sort of an incubator or accelerator type approach if you had gone to school before you started your business?
I imagine so. Like I said, I benefited from the fact that before I started a business, I was an independent contractor, so I knew what it meant to, do taxes, where it was more than just, here's my W-2. It's like, now you got to fill out the Schedule C and do all these other. So I benefited from the fact that I was baby stepped into, but if I hadn't had that, absolutely, an incubator approach, and what Marnie was getting at earlier too about just basic education, it absolutely would have helped.
What do you think, Marnie?
Well, I don't know that millennials need a lot more encouragement, certainly, to think about an idea. They seem to have lots of ideas and be passionate all on their own. I don't know how much schools will want. I guess what's in the back of my mind is this study that's coming out recently, that there's this huge gap between people going to school, getting these educations, and the gap that exists between the lack of people going into the trades. So I don't know what way schools are going to go, and certainly, as you said, I think it would be helpful. But there's like a world of information available to them, so I don't think it's necessary as it once was. If you've got a great idea, you're passionate, this is what all of these folks have done, then I think you're well on your way. So.
But do you think that teaching sort of the fundamentals of business from the scholastic side is more
absolutely
as important as kind of the execution end of it?
Yeah, I think that's an important part of any kind of, I guess, any kind of program, really. I don't know necessarily like a startup program, although that could be beneficial as well. But I certainly see the benefit for all these entrepreneurs to have that kind of a class, even if it's a short class under their belt. So, yeah.
Okay, Geneviève?
Well, I didn't study business either. I was in theater, and I remember my last year of university, at the beginning of my last year of university, I started feeling very nervous and anxious about what was to come afterwards. And one of my teachers said, there's a life after school. You're going to be okay. And it's just the difference between the student life and what we can call like the real life is so different. So maybe like if we did touch a little bit more of what's real at school, it would help with the transition. Um, I forgot what I wanted to say.
You too.
I'll reserve comment on that.
Oh yes, however, there are some things that you can only learn when you're really doing it into it, when you're not at school, because I don't think, my mentor called it the School of to Liberty. That's what he said we were doing as a new business. Our first year is the School of Liberty, and I don't think I could have learned anything I've learned in the past year at school. So, yes and no.
Okay, Michael.
Well, I think it is important to have some kind of basic schooling for entrepreneurs. In the past, this summer I've worked with an organization which is called SAGE in Montreal, and they've helped an awful lot of young entrepreneurs to launch a business, similar, I guess, to what CYBF is doing. And they have a lot of also training, and I know they've partnered with Intuit for QuickBooks Online, and they've helped them to understand the financials of all the different aspects of a business, and I see that it does help a lot of these young entrepreneurs where probably they would not be in business today if it wasn't for that type of help. So I think it's not just financial help, which is, of course, financial help is also important, but I think education is also important. And these types of organizations, I think, are very good to give that directions and to help those entrepreneurs to direct them into the correct resources to get the information they want.
So we have a couple of bricks and mortar businesses here, in addition to the accountants, of course. And you know, it's kind of unusual because most young entrepreneurs these days are going into technology. One of the things that has been talked about a lot is the whole like building an audience first versus revenue first approaches. So in other words, you know, does it make sense to build a really big audience and then figure out how to make money, or do you always need to try to figure out how to make money first? So maybe from the business owner's standpoint, try to sort of project yourself out into that whole sort of technology mindset, and you know, do you think that it's as important to build an audience or a customer base as it is to try to figure out how to extract money from them, or does it make sense to figure out the money end of it first before you actually go out there and start running the business? And obviously, I'm sure that our financial advisors will have some perspective on that as well. So, Charles, why don't we start with you?
Well, that's a really good question. It's a tough one. My first impression is that I'm inclined to think that maybe both are viable ways. There's not a right way or a wrong way. They're just maybe very different strategies. I did have a conversation with somebody who actually worked in biotech out in San Diego, and I mean, they're talking about bringing a drug to market. It's like a huge thing, and so for them growing that business, it's like, no, you always sell the hype. You always have, you're like, it's, you're not going to have a product on the market for more than a decade. So it's constantly being like, look how, it's having an audience, having a lot of hype, and because you're not going to be able to, function organically off cash flow for, forever. So I think that's, in that sector, that probably is the way to go. Is you have the audience and figure out how you'll make money later, and then. One thing you learn from doing business in Canada is actually it's still very nice to be a wholesale distributor in this country, and that's the kind of thing that you can just, if that's how it is, you can enjoy decent margin, and you can just grow your business with nothing more than listings in some directories because you're the guy that has the thing in this market. So I think I guess my answer is it depends on what kind of business you're in. Speaking for myself, for a distillery, much like a brewery, it's a little column A, a little column B. We're offering a consumer good here, so we absolutely have to get our name out. But at the same time, it's cash flow intensive, so you have to, both. But I can imagine what there's other situations which are fit neatly into each category. So, sorry, I don't know if that helped at all.
No, it does help, but I think, it's always a question of how badly people want your product, right? To the point where are they going to actually take their wallet out and put some money down in order to purchase it? And I think it's the same even with a bricks and mortar business. You might have been blinded by the fact that you really wanted to make whiskey, which I'm sorry I wasn't able to try because it's too early in the morning, but you've got to kind of make that decision, I think, especially in a cash flow intensive business, whether or not it makes sense to actually put that product out there. Are people going to buy it? Do you do your customer research in advance to see whether there's a market out there for that product? Or do you go out there and throw people samples and stuff like that, and if they really like it, do you say to them, would you actually pay money for this?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. And when I went to this distilling conference in Kentucky, and people there, they're passionate moonshiners, whiskey makers. They're in it because they love distilling, and marketing is a complete afterthought. And it's really labor intensive to produce, and so that was a recurring piece of advice in different panels was, how much time do you? A lot they're still holding down day jobs. So how much time you have to figure out your schedule, and you have to allocate time and money, which is the hardest part, to getting your name out there, because you've got so much money that you want to spend on shiny nice new equipment, but if you don't allocate both time and money to marketing, so that's the ultimate line you got to walk, and it's I think if you figure out that line successfully, you're probably good to go, and it's the hardest thing to do, I suppose. So yeah. No.
And so Marty, what do you think? Do you work with any of these tech companies that have struggled with that?
Yeah, and I would say, again, it's what Charles says. It's kind of industry specific what they're going to do. But I think I would just sort of add on to that if you are building a customer list, it's becoming so much more about relationship with those customers. So it's not just, building your email list or sending out marketing materials. It's really developing relationships with your customer base. So I would just add that on to that.
So do you think it's worth that you have to build those relationships first and then worry about how to actually convert those people?
I think those two things happen a lot of businesses are doing those two things at the same time, right? So you're building, whether you've got I'll just use a Facebook business page. If you've got 10,000 followers or 1,000, is it too early to pitch? Well, for some businesses, maybe it is. For some businesses, probably not, right? There's no reason you can't be working on both at the same time. But again, I think it's so relationship-based. You have to develop them, and then you have to try to keep those relationships, because there's plenty of competition out there, right? So, yeah.
Okay, and Geneviève, did you just kind of launch your business and then open the doors and say, I hope people show up, or how did that process work for you?
No, I think I don't really know what to add to that. Pretty much, that's what it is. But I think I have to start with the audience just a little bit before. But they mostly go at the same time. You have to work at both. But I had to make sure that I could have people there to look at my shows. Otherwise, why would I work on them?
So how did you build your customer base? What was your strategy?
Well, we do have a theater community in my town, and we put out there that we were there to promote the I can't find my words, the la relève, the people that were coming, because when we come out of university or whatever in theater, most people go to Montreal to work, because that's where the job is, in theater. But we wanted people to stay in Gatineau, stay where you live, where you're from, and build this sense of community, and that's where we're from, and we're proud of our artists and everything. So we put that out there, and we got a good response. So that's how we started.
Okay, Michael, anything to add?
I think all the others have said pretty much what I think. It's a bit of both. You have to build your audience, and you also have to think of the product or the services that you want to sell. But I think what's most important is to do what you like. You have to enjoy what you're doing, and if you enjoy what you're doing, then you're going to be passionate about it. And when you're passionate about it, eventually it's going to work. You might struggle, you're going to find hurdles and all kinds of things through your path, but if you really like what you're doing, you're going to succeed. And from my own experience, it's been that way. I mean, I've been passionate about accounting from the very start, and I've been passionate about QuickBooks. And I mean, it's what I love doing. I love to help those businesses to have to take hold of their accounting, take hold of their finances, and to know where they're going and to find solutions to their problem. And that's what I do, and that's what I enjoy doing. And I think it's important to do what you like.
Okay, I just want to stick with the bricks and mortar theme for another question, because again, if we're going to talk about the baby boomers, a lot of them own bricks and mortar businesses, and part of their retirement plan, or potentially all of their retirement plan, involves selling those businesses. Presumably, the people they're going to try to sell those businesses to would be millennials. But technology is, the hottest sector at the moment, and I think most young people look to technology first as their way into the market. But there's this great opportunity out there to buy a successful business and run with it. But of course, it's not quite as sexy as running a technology company. But do you guys see the sale of a bricks and mortar business as like a great opportunity for the millennial generation? And is there a way to try to sort of encourage them to move into that area? And Charles, you're nodding, so why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I do think so. I went to law school in Washington, D.C., where it's privatized liquor stores, and these things, it's sort of going to be so sector specific here, but I think that's a phenomenal opportunity. Each, because you can't have more than one liquor store within 400 feet in any direction, and so they're essentially throughout the city, and each one of them is like a fiefdom, like that's your block. And I'm telling young people all the time, like, buy one of these things. A lot of them are still, you're ordering the same garbage labels that the wholesaler's been providing them forever. You're ordering from behind bulletproof glass, that's just absurd at this point. And meanwhile, you can benefit from explosive growth in the sector. I mean, the LCBO's craft beer sales are going up 33% each year, and so if you can it's amazing how many people are established and they're comfortable, like they've got an income stream, and so they're just sort of like, okay, I'm just going to ride this out. But if you're when they do go up for sale, and they're for sale all the time, I think they're a wonderful opportunity, because for most of them you can definitely buy them and do some exciting things with them, and I think they're all opportunities for growth, and a lot of the growth isn't just from benefiting from the changes that are happening in the industry. It's also from technology, and so one of the things that when I looked at the regulatory landscape in Ontario, I was like, you can sell liquor online in Ontario, but nobody's doing that. So we sort of just turned it on, and we use another Ontario company, Shopify, which we absolutely love, and now we're getting our shipping account set up with Canada Post. So we definitely, instead of having to rely just on our brick and mortar location, the Junction, we can sell it online and ship it within the province. So there's tons of opportunities to take established brick and mortar businesses and grow them in exciting ways.
I like that idea of how they've been running their businesses the same way, and that there's actually ways to take those businesses and add some innovation into them and actually improve on them. So, Marnie, any thoughts?
I have to be honest, this really isn't on my radar, so I can't really speak to it. I don't see a lot of the businesses, probably because I'm not looking for them, or neither are the people I'm working with. So
let me ask you this then. If you were a young entrepreneur and you didn't have any savings or any money to purchase a business, but it was something that really interested you, is there a way to actually make that happen?
To actually purchase that business, I actually don't know that. I guess you could get loans or whatnot, because those businesses are not going to be cheap. I mean, I do see sometimes, right, franchise opportunities. You need $1 million, so that's not going to happen for somebody that has no cash. And I don't know if it's the case that I just don't see them, but a lot of those businesses seem to be passed down to children and grandchildren and whatnot. So I don't see a ton come up for sale. Like I said, it's just really not on my radar. So that said, my stepdad is selling his business right now. And it's challenging, to be honest, because probably for the same reason, right? It's so easy just to jump online and get that business set up and going. but somebody that's going to buy that business has to buy all the assets, the land, like all of it. So that's an expensive proposition for somebody just starting out.
Okay, Geneviève?
I'm a bit in the same situation here. I don't really know a lot about that, but I think it also depends on why you go into business in the first place. I do it because I'm an artist first, and then I'm an entrepreneur. I don't think I would go and buy just to have a business. But for someone who starts, it's a big deal. It's a big responsibility, I find. For someone who's never even experienced it, it's a big investment. Be scary.
Absolutely. Michael?
I also don't have that much to say about the subject. Like the others said, maybe give a new spin on an old business. Brick and mortar business is probably interesting for a lot of young entrepreneurs. But again, they need the money to be able to purchase it. So I think maybe a lot of them would probably go into business on their own, just start a brand new business instead of trying to buy an existing one.
Are there any ways, though, that they could make that happen based on your experience? Or are you in the same boat with Marnie where you're not quite sure how that would happen?
Yeah, it's not part of my expertise, so no, I wouldn't have any comment on that.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions as we're moving along here for the panel before I keep talking?
Can I just actually add to that?
Sure.
In the community that I live in, there sure have been a lot of places brick and mortar start up and go away really fast. Like, it happens all the time. So I don't know as a millennial or somebody looking to start out how appealing that actually is. And it's a great business model. You're right. Like, even I've toyed around with the idea of opening a restaurant, but you hear the stats, right? How hard it is. And I've seen, because I've worked with startup restaurants. It's not the easiest thing. So while it's probably a great business opportunity, it's probably a little overwhelming for a lot of people just getting their start.
I can.
Sorry, go ahead.
And just to add to that too, I mean, someone mentioned franchise loans. They'll not like. One of the things I often see is you can't spend any of this money on franchise fees, and so and getting a loan from a traditional lender, it's relationships are key. I think that the way it can happen is you have to talk to the person selling the business. If you're young, I mean, a bank won't, even for the Canada business, Canada's small business financing loan, where the government guarantees the bank's loan, they won't give that to you unless you as an individual have 20% net worth of the loan. So unless you're already independently wealthy, that's inaccessible. The way it can work, though, is there are a lot of people who own these businesses and are retiring, and if you can work with them, like they'll actually they'll provide a security to facilitate the sale of their own business, and but that obviously requires a relationship, and you got to. My advice would be talk to. You can't just you can't walk in there like with a letter from the bank to give you. That's probably not going to happen unless you're already independently wealthy. But if you have a relationship with the owner, then you could probably find a lender to facilitate the sale.
Okay. Hi, Julia.
Just worth pointing out, actually, the vast majority of young entrepreneurs are starting bricks and mortar businesses. So they're all interested in tech and they use it in those businesses. But 98% of Canadian businesses, small business, much of it bricks and mortar. And our experience is that most young entrepreneurs, CYBXers, are actually doing bricks and mortar with a nice tech component.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. Question at the back. Oh, sorry. They want us to use the mic if there's a question, I guess, for the online audience. Okay, Jean's got a question here. Just wait for the mic, okay? She's right here in the middle.
Thanks.
Do you want to just tell everybody who you are?
Oh, I'm Jean Chow, and I've been a volunteer mentor for the Canadian Youth Business Foundation for over 3 years. My other role, and if Julia permits me to plug the Toronto Public Library, I'm also the entrepreneur in residence for the Toronto Public Library. So in support of what, there's two things I'd like to point out. Julia, you mentioned about the onset of many bricks and mortar businesses starting, And I just had a brief conversation with an investor, and he says that he no longer thinks we're looking at tech, we're looking at the bricks and mortar businesses more, it's on their radar. Secondly, in answer to the question about resources out there, financial resources, bookkeeping, the library is a great equalizer, and your library card can open many doors to many resources. So book a librarian. It's Small Business Month at the library. Sean and I are actually both speaking this evening, Sean at the library at the Beaches, if I'm correct, about how to attract media, businesses to attract media attention. And I'll be having a Q&A drop-in at the Toronto Reference for new entrepreneurs. But the library has a lot of free resources online and in the library to help new entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Sorry, that was like an
You managed to
infomercial,
throw
but
a
forgive
plug
me.
for me in there as well. Well done. You get a prize later. Okay. Any other questions? Any from the online audience? Or yes? Okay. Do you want to just communicate it for us? Thanks.
So we have a question from Twitter. With all the conversation going on around education and learning before you start your business, they want to know, how do you know when you're prepared to start? Maybe just a couple key points of things, you can kind of go down a checklist. I know this. Okay, maybe I'm ready to start.
Geneviève, do you want to try that one first? Sorry.
That's a good question. I think you'd never really know that you're ready, because you don't really know till you live it what's ahead of you. But I think when you feel prepared, when you feel ready to jump, I didn't really have a checklist. It was mostly like, okay, well, I have my ideas, I did my research, I have my plan, I have finance plan and gut feeling. Yeah.
Is there anything you would have done differently now that you can sort of look back, having had some experience as a business owner? Because that actually sometimes can be more helpful, right, to the people that are just starting out.
Asked more stupid questions, mostly to my mentor. 'Cause he was there to help. He didn't really know how to help because I didn't really know what to ask. I was afraid to ask sometimes. So mostly about regulations and permits of the city and even the province. Quebec is it's pretty hard to do business in Quebec. But all of how that works, I had no idea till I was on the field. So I would have asked more questions about that.
Yeah, so I think that's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the regulatory landscape, having a mentor, obviously two very important things. Charles, do you want to add anything there?
Well, certainly, I think that, and this was great because it's part of going through CYBF, but if you have to, business plans are actually kind of controversial, I think, in a lot of communities now, which, I don't want to wade into the debate, but speaking for myself, and especially with a brick and mortar business, you have to be able to give it to completely impartial strangers, and they have to say, okay, we think it's not your friends, not your family. Somebody who's like really going to give it a hard look. Now, at the end of the day, you're going to have to make projections in that plan, and if you don't have confidence in the projections, who knows if they're going to turn out right or not? But if you don't have confidence in the projections, then that's probably a sign to not proceed at that moment. But if you have confidence in the projections, and then the plan, your path forward makes sense to disinterested people who are going to give it a skeptical eye, then that's probably a very good place to start.
Michael, you have any advice for people just starting out?
Well, one thing that Geneviève said that I totally agree on is don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Because I know when I teach, I get that a lot, is somebody will raise their hand and say, this is a stupid question, and then they ask their question. But I think when you're starting up as a business, when you're launching your business, there is no stupid question. Every question is important because you're learning and you want to establish that business. So don't be afraid. If you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out in business, don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no stupid questions.
Marnie.
Yeah, what Charles said about developing sort of a business plan, I think that's important. And it's projections. You don't necessarily know. But by doing that exercise, you certainly are setting your intentions. And that's just a huge part of it, is just the process of getting to that point. So.
Okay. Any more from online? Okay. So a lot of the messaging, I think, that has gone out into the world, sort of broadly speaking, is that there are no jobs out there for young people, and they're going to have to turn to entrepreneurship if they want to make a living for themselves. But not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody has the risk tolerance. Not everybody has the skills. Not everybody has the ideas. So it's one thing to say, hey, just go out and start a business. That's your career path. But it's another to actually be the person that has to do that. And in fact, I think a lot of young people, and just a lot of people generally, aren't even really well suited to work at a small business and to wear 10 different hats at one time, and to be willing to do one thing one day and another thing the next day, and maybe even do one thing 1 hour and something else the next hour. So what do you guys think in terms of advice for the audience out there? Like, if you're someone that's not really entrepreneurially minded, do you think there's a way to kind of force yourself into that sort of role? Or do you think that it's really the job of our corporations to make sure that they continue to provide jobs for young people, so that the people who aren't necessarily suited for this particular type of role, have some options? And Charles, why don't we start with you? You might even have some friends say that you could use as an example.
Absolutely. So I've got actually like very specific thoughts on this. When I went to law school, a lot of my friends have graduated, and the whole firm, the traditional firm structure that's existed for like the last 60 years is utterly collapsed. Large corporations are no longer willing to pay large fees for associates, and yet that's what the whole model was. It's like a pyramid model. You get the partner at the top, and he's paying, some associate who doesn't really know anything because they're maybe just out of school are still being very well compensated, but that whole model's gone. So a lot of young lawyers are now working as independent contractors, and I say, like, it's become obvious that it's actually a lot. You can have an income and have a life, and instead of rather than looking for a job, which is essentially you're asking for somebody to like take care of you 100%. Here's your health care, here's everything. There's just sell your services. Hang your own. You can say hang your own shingle, but that definitely, you do not need to have a traditional office at this point. You can definitely just have a website and sell your services. And I think the moment you get into the mindset of I'm not looking for a job, I'm looking to sell services, actually everything becomes a lot easier. But the flip side is no one's talking about these people as entrepreneurs. They're just, you're just whatever, it's because you're selling your service. Well, and we kind of think of as an entrepreneur, you've got to like start like this business, but you are a business. If you're out there selling your services, you are a business. So maybe we can make entrepreneurship less daunting if we just expand the scope to mean, just it's okay. We'll celebrate you for, even though you don't have a job, but you're out there selling your services. Maybe that would make it less daunting to people. Because I think that is certainly that people and younger generation are just going to have to it's okay to not have a job, just if you can sell your services. And the one thing that is not anyone's fault though is that there are lawyer here, but there are like labor laws which make it tricky. There's all these laws requiring businesses, if somebody's doing something, you can't have them be an independent contractor. You have to be an employee. But given how difficult that is these days, with all the overhead that entails, that is a stumbling block to moving in that direction.
Marnie.
I really think that as much as the opportunity exists for startups and entrepreneurs, I don't think everybody's cut out for that. And I think there's a lot of people, and there's certainly a lot of jobs to be filled still by non-entrepreneurs. So, there's a mix, just like I think there always has been. Maybe it's leaning more towards entrepreneurship these days, but certainly there's plenty of jobs for those that don't have the skills to set out on their own. So.
And Geneviève, again, if you want to, bring some other people in as examples that you know of.
Well, it's definitely not in everybody. It wasn't in me at first. I'm not an entrepreneur at core. I'm learning a lot. But but you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone to do that. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to jump into it, you have to be willing to be really uncomfortable at times and to go out there. If you're not, it's not cut out for you, and it's okay also. But yeah, if it's not in you, but you have an idea, and you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, then it's totally worth it. Yeah. I don't really have any examples of people I know, except me.
No, but you're a good example. You're someone who was saying that I'm not really cut out to be an entrepreneur, but you are one because presumably there wasn't another option for you, right? So you had to grab the bull by the horns. I think that's going to happen increasingly. Michael, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think actually both are important, and some people are not cut out to be entrepreneurs, and probably never will be. They'll want to have a job, some kind of security at their job, and I think that's okay. But those that want to be entrepreneurs, or maybe if they see it a bit differently, where they could, a bit like Charles said, to sell their services instead of saying, "Well, I now have a business," but just being an independent worker. And a lot of people are seeing their careers as being an independent worker, and then they choose the jobs that they like, and I think that's also another good option.
Yeah, I think we still have that division between self-employed and entrepreneur, when I think what you guys are arguing is that they're really one and the same, which is probably the case. Okay, so it's time for us to wrap things up. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank our online audience. I want to thank Startup Canada and the Canadian Youth Business Foundation, and of course Intuit Canada for hosting this event today and for having me, and thank you to all the panelists for taking the time out to talk to us and give us all kinds of valuable information, and have a great day. Thanks very much.